Truth told, no matter which industry, profession, or role you are in, it's going to change if it hasn't changed already. AI, especially, has impacted a lot of the skills that we need to use, but also the task that we are performing in our everyday life. And it's only the beginning. With technology, it usually doesn't impact, it doesn't change anything, and all of a sudden it takes over the world. And today we want to talk about how can you future-proof yourself, especially if you are in a profession or an industry that is heavily impacted by technology and AI in particular. And we are joined by somebody who's done exactly that. We are joined by Jane Kim, who has started her career as a translator, but since then has evolved massively. Thank you so much for being here, Jane.
Thank you so much for having me. It's great to see you.
Same. We connected on LinkedIn, and I absolutely love your personal brand. I love your content. You have evolved from the translator into an author, and you have done incredible things. You've also built your personal brand as a translator. You have literally breaking the norm when it comes to this profession. This is probably why you are the front runner when it comes to future proofing a very traditional profession, but also a profession that changes massively. Give us a bit of a background. How did you land to where you are right now, and what changes have you seen over the years since you entered the profession?
Sure. Thank you so much for the great introduction. I'm really honored. Again, I'm very looking forward to sharing my own journey with the viewers. And to tell a little bit about myself, I'm again Jane Kim. I'm a language professional of more than 15 years. So I have been in industry for more than a decade. So it's like you can tell it's a long time, quite a long time. And I have been I was lucky enough to, observe the changes that our industry is going through. And a few years back, I remember it was toward the end of 2021, I discovered that, people are talking more about the technology. So there are differences, between language groups. So some languages are more impacted by the machines and other languages are not yet. Just the difference of data sets and all that, right? And there are required quality control and more, complex things involved. But anyhow, toward the end of 2021, I was working on some project, my translation project, and I normally would, translate everything from scratch because that's the way I used to prefer to do. So I was not interested in, AI machine translation at all because I was just too proud about my translations. I would never allow a machine to, take some of my work. Like it's my sentences, my words. I always like my work better than the machines. I can do much better. But then I realized everybody else was trying the tools. They were already using the tools already, which I was realizing later, you could say that. So this one day, because, I was too busy during that time, so I decided to, give it a try. And then I used, one of the tools, automation, tools for translation. Turns out, compared to a few years back, the quality the machine was giving to me was absolutely better. So much better. It was so beautiful. It was doing, I was thinking it was doing even better at some points in terms of translation quality. I was so surprised and also very scared. I was afraid that it will take over my work and job and everything, right? So that was the time I decided to start my researches about the evolvement and advancement of technology, how our industry will be specifically impacted, and how much more how can I get ready for this huge change. So in this year of 2020, the whole year, I took time to do my researches. So early on, I started studying Python, deep learning, machine learning, all that good stuff. And then my researches evolved. I got to interview many people from the, computational linguistic field. I, visited, some of the, I visited some people to hear about, what they are researching on, what they prospect the technology will be headed to, how much better it can do compared to people. Like all of them were saying it, translation like the requirement for human translators won't go away, but it might be reshaped. The role of translators and language professionals will be reshaped, is how they vaguely, giving me the message. So I was smart enough to catch up on it, and then wrote it in my book to share with, my fellows, my language professional fellows. I wanted as many people as I can share, like I wanted them to be prepared too. So that was one of my, biggest motives to write this book. So year of 2020 was me researching, studying, and writing a book of the future of translation. So the industry is definitely being disrupted. And this year, especially, before and after ChatGPT and many other AI language services, our role is specifically changing into more like creating corpus, or control language quality. So it is basically training the language data that AI creates, or even sometimes creating from scratch for AI. So it is more like not just putting our words and translate words, but it is more like creating data set and quality control data set for AI technology.
So fascinating. I just wrote down a ton of notes that we don't skip any of those gold nuggets, because you've said very profound things that people from any kind of industry or profession certainly can apply for themselves also. So firstly, you mentioned not every language is impacted by AI the same way. And I want to dig deeper in that for a second, but often we think that when something is impacted or disrupted, everything is exactly the same. And even in different professions or roles, it's not everything that is impacted. Some are more heavily impacted than others. So even just having this awareness that where is it impacted and how can I shift my focus and upskill, that is already a very strategic approach. Now, what is the reason why some languages are more impacted by AI than others? Is it the popularity, or what is it?
It is basically because of from my understanding, the quantity of data sets. So like some languages are heavily, managed inside the online realm, right? Like if there's a country where they speak a certain language and they use a lot of internet and they put a lot of data into the online space, that becomes the data. For example, I'm from South Korea. There's a huge company which is known for our best #1, search engine. And that is the company which is really well known for AI right now. It's only possible because of the language data set that we use to, input into online searches. We, published our blog posts. That all becomes the, data set that will be used for, automated translations or other AI services. In contrary, if there are less data set, it's it becomes more difficult and challenging to create, for example, better quality language services in terms of automation. So, basically the number of population and quantity of data sets will be the key factors.
Fascinating. And again, it comes down to staying curious and asking more questions and identifying what is the reason behind the changes that we can then adjust accordingly. And speaking of changes, you also said initially you didn't want to use it because it was your work. And often we see that our role, the job title, the task that we're performing is connected to our identity. So if that's stripped away from us, who are we? What kind of value are we providing? But then something must have triggered you that you say, you know what, I give this thing, technology and AI, a go. What led you into actually learning and exploring it a little bit further after you were a little bit hesitant to it?
That's a great question. Thanks for asking. So it's very, very interesting actually, because once I opened my heart to, utilize these services, there are just so many good services, especially starting from this year. because
Mhm.
of the generative AI evolving so much, and there are so many services we can try upon. So even toward early of this year, I was a bit scared and hesitant about using more services. I was feeling a bit guilty because of, this mentality that I used to have. Human translations are the only translations. The definition of translation is only something done by human. Because, I am from the older generation. I'm so used to think like that. Like humans are better. Humans are, but it is really not like that. So we need to really change our mindset and our perspective. So one of my favorite terms that I use oftentimes, I try to use as more as possible these days, is co-evolving. So it is not, AI going ahead of us. It is not evolving and advancing by itself. It is co-evolving with us. So you mentioned briefly about reskilling and upskilling. So upskilling is really important, and leveling up your services by utilizing and embracing the technology within your work and life. It's just making our life so much easier in many ways. And after, like, let's say after spring of this year, after I did, quite sufficient experiment myself with ChatGPT specifically, I opened my heart and embraced fully the technology. And it is really changing my work and life, because I even wrote a book with the help of ChatGPT, and one other is coming up soon too. So it is really something that gives me an opportunity. I don't know about other people yet. There are pros and cons about utilizing, AI technology, but in terms of me, it is really giving me more work, and in the new realm also. Right. So it is an opportunity. We are co-evolving with it. So embrace that. Why not?
I love this evolution, this explanation, because you also mentioned something very profound, that your work has evolved and has leveled up and is also changing. So whilst it may not be the physical and the human translation that is the forefront now, you're now working with AI to provide an even better outcome. And I'm the same. I'm from the older generation. I didn't grow up with technology until I was in my early 20s, really. Leave alone like mobile phones or anything like that, or smartphones. There wasn't a thing. And also our parents, it was very much hard work, put your head down and work your way up, and somebody will see how good you are. Clearly that's not the case, and probably has never been. But nowadays, where we've got more technology, it is a mindset and an identity shift, that we say it's not just how much we work and physical hours we put into that outcome. It's what can I do to get the best result, leveraging what I've got available. If it's a person or is it technology, it makes our work, I think, more exciting, but it definitely changes. Um, Now, what else have you mentioned? You also said may not be for others. What, because your profession, a translation, is very traditional, and there is not somebody who is a front runner. You are the front runner because you've also written a book on that. What gets you excited? Where and how do you see the opportunity when there is not a clear pathway from others that you could follow, because you're literally clearing your own path and setting it for others?
Thank you for mentioning that. Again, I'm honored. And paving the way is really, I think, exciting, but also very scary. And also the changes. So people don't quite like changes,
Mhm.
good or bad. So it can bring us better results, but we don't know how clearly it will give us, like how it's going to open our doors and all that. We don't know those details specifically, not just yet, because nobody has done that yet, for example, when you're paving the way. So it is very scary. And also because of that factor, also very rewarding and exciting. So I think I'm more of a, like, I am a very timid and very cautious person, but at the same time, I also enjoy challenges. So these two things are balancing inside of me, and I think it's definitely leading me to lead ahead in terms of this time of disruption. Disruption can be scary, but there can be some guidelines. So I'm trying to give as much as I can to other people in terms of these specific tips and all that. But also I have this so strong of a trust in other people too, because they know for themselves, they know what's best for them. So I think only when we look for the best ourselves, then we'll just find a way, even in this time of disruption.
Absolutely. I think actually the biggest risk that you can take these days is not taking any risk and doing the same old that you've been doing for the last few years. Because I love this word that you mentioned, we are co-evolving, because it's true. The input, the questions, the prompts that we give AI, it learns from that. So it's not, it gets ahead of us and then we try to chase it. It's not the case at all. And technology and the world evolves whether we like it or not, whether we evolve or not. Nobody is waiting for us. So if we can embrace that, and also what you do so well is you work out loud. Like this is the whole concept of also becoming the trusted authority, that you are the translator, not in the actual way that your profession is about, but what does it do to my profession? What does it do to my industry? And how can my audience learn from my take-ons and learnings? And they are also evolving as we go. In your research, in your book, The Future of Translation, what are some of the key findings that you share with other translators? And again, I think there's a lot more crossovers across different industries and professions.
Sure, definitely. So in this book called The Future of Translation, I tried to share as much as I could in terms of my researches and interviews and all that. But one very important point that I took away, during the journey of writing this whole book was that nobody quite understood the future so clearly. Like even the experts in for example, computational linguistics, they didn't know for sure what the future will bring about for all of us. So again, it was, I think, 2 or 3 years back, I read this one sentence from one of the books that I was reading. It was mentioning, or it was an article. It was mentioning nobody knows anything.
True.
Do you remember
true.
that? Yeah.
Yes.
It was one of by those, entrepreneurs for big tech companies. And I was so assured that it was not, it was the same for our own industry. So it is definitely reshaping our work, our daily, to-dos and everything. But also, like, there are still unknowns, so many unknowns still to be discovered. So my takeaway, like major points from the book, is that I'm writing this book to open the gate for more discussions. Like even for the topics of AGI, or something else, the role of translators. And I also wanted to highlight that AI is powerful, but it is not human. Like it requires human depth, human touch, so it will always need our help. So we need to train it, and in a better way. That is one of the reasons why I plan on researching and digging in further in terms of AI and ethics, because there are just so many topics to be discovered and discussed. We need more discussions, so we have to open the gate, and it is not something to be afraid about. Technology is, again, evolving with us. We have to reskill and upskill, but there are definitely nuances, tones, emotions, and cultures. So we need to be an ambassador for AI. So these elements, the tapestry of language, is AI, something that AI cannot alone cover. So we are an ambassador of culture, emotion, and human connection. So take ourselves more seriously. Like what we do is so important. It's just so much more than just translating words.
Oh, honestly, your insights are music to my ears, because you are literally ticking one box after the other in terms of you've done your original research. And you're right, nobody knows exactly what happens even in the next hour, because nobody's got the crystal ball, and that's the exciting part. But we can curate knowledge and insights from different people and then put our spin on it with our experience and the patterns that we've found in our own research. And this is exactly what scientists also do. Nobody has got the exact answer, and it constantly evolves as well. And I'm also really curious, because usually translators are in the background. Nobody knows of them because they are, yeah, literally in the background. However, you've built your personal brand and you've also done a lot more than just translate. I'm curious, over the years, what other skills have you acquired to that help you future-proof yourself and to evolve in your own career?
This is an interesting question too. Thank you. So it is another favorite topic of mine to discuss because I'm really like into expanding my own career by, upskilling, leveling up and all that. And I started publishing in 2020, which is 3 years ago. That was the year when my first book came out by my own self-publishment. And in 2021, I wrote several more books, quite a few more books. And writings, I realized that one of the strengths that I had, and probably it got better because I worked so much as a translator. So I think translators are normally good thinkers, clear thinkers, because they have good sentences. Language and our thought processes are very like closely connected. So language, impacts our thinking processes. Thoughts comes out through language. So those are two things, in two different names. I think they are the same, like not exactly the same thing, but very closely related. So translators make good sentences concisely and which delivers meanings in a very clear way, which it requires a lot of decision making processes, a lot of researches, a lot of work efforts. So I realized that I'm so good at writing and writing feels so easy to me right now. So I wrote books, many books over the course of years, and also dig into a bit further, like as I mentioned, about Python and deep learning and machine learning. So it doesn't mean that I will become a computational expert overnight. No, but I want to have this understanding at least. I think that's a responsibility for me and my profession, which I have done for so many years. So by discovering your own topics of interest, it can be culture, it can be other languages, it can be human behavior, anything. Just start digging into further because translators are good at studies. We just love studies, we love discoveries. So do more readings about the topics, and especially including the topic of technological evolvement. There are very good books, there are recommendation lists, and subscribe to free newsletters. I have this list of free AI newsletters on my YouTube channel, so if you're interested, you can visit there and download the list. So there are ways to educate yourself, like in so many ways. This digital era is like a gift to me, especially me as a non-native speaker. There are just so many good quality English materials. It feels like a blessing. Like years back when I was studying English for the first time, there were no, as many like audio or video courses. So start, in, like high-end and state-of-the-art skills is something you must have. But if you are assured that your services are good quality already, then start digging into further about new topics, and then it applied back to your, for example, writing and all that. So my upskilling started all from my writing process, I have to say.
Amazing. And just your thought process and how you explain it tells me that you are a very strategic thinker, because what you've done first is that you've identified a pattern. Like, why am I good in my profession? It's because this, and this. And these are the soft skills that are transferable skills that we can also use into a different profession. So becoming an author from being a translator, it's actually not that far once you see the pattern and can connect the dots. And this is also what we talk a lot about: career transitions. If you want to go from A to Z and there's nothing in common, it's your job, quote unquote, to find the commonalities and what kind of skills and strength that you've got already developed and you enjoy doing, can you translate into this other area? And this is how you can actually evolve. And then the other aspect that you mentioned was that you don't be a specialist or a hands-on expert in Python or machine learning, but you need to understand the impact of it. And this is exactly when we talk about the T-shaped skill set. You are very good in an area, but then you upskill so you have a good understanding across the different disciplines that impact your specialization. This is exactly how you can branch out and develop different careers or skills very easily.
Exactly. Couldn't agree more. I think anybody can do it and start do a thing today.
Absolutely. And it literally starts by probably starting by looking back and see what are the commonalities, and then looking forward, how can we make sense out of that, and also do some research in terms of what's happening in the world, like how are other industries impacted and what can I learn from that? The lateral thinking, like it doesn't necessarily need to be in your professional industry already. Like yourself, you are a front runner and an innovator in that space. You can't follow anyone because it's way too new. And so many other professionals will experience exactly that. Now, having said that, talking about future, we need to navigate the future. And I'm super curious, what's in your crystal ball? How do you see the future of translation evolve even further from here?
Sure. Again, our industry will be impacted, and every single person on this planet will be impacted, will be living a different era. So it's very, very interesting. And I feel so lucky that I'm going through these changes with all of you guys more than anything. So the future is, I think, very, very promising. And you have to, there are still quite a few people who are not fond of utilizing technology. I think that's a choice that you can make if you are a minimalist or if you are thinking differently for your own career path. But I really truly believe that, and I strongly recommend that you start utilizing and playing with the technology one or two starting from today. That will create a huge difference for your future, is all I can tell.
Oh, this is perfect. And to wrap things up and give our listeners and our viewers a practical tip, let's geek out for a second because I know you use a ton of different tools. Have you got any favorites? Like, have you got any go-tos that you could not live without? Or what are the tech tools or the AI tools that you would recommend us to get started playing with or get exposed to?
Oh, sure. Definitely ChatGPT. So I've been playing with Bing and some other tools, but and from my own language group also. But ChatGPT is still among my, favorite because it's the easiest and it's still the fastest. And I wrote a book with it. So again, because I'm a non-native English speaker, I never thought of, writing a whole book in English. Because the future of translation, the English version of it was translated from, my language. So this is my very first book that I have ever written in English, and it was only possible with the help of ChatGPT. It can edit and create sentences for me, and it is so easy to use. So if you have the belief in yourself that you have the control of the end quality, finished quality, and you can control and guide the direction that AI will be taking you to, then ChatGPT is really of a go-to tool. There will be many other services that will be launched, so one by one follow the path and try one or two things like every time they're launched.
Oh, Jane, honestly, this has been nothing but fascinating. And as I said, there are so many gold nuggets for people also outside the translation profession and industry, because it always comes down to being strategic and intentional with your actions. And also, probably to put a bow on the entire conversation, you constantly said it's a choice. Every decision that you make, it's a choice, whether you adopt it or whether you hide it, whether you embrace it or you're fearful of. Nobody takes away that initial decision and then you take it from there. And this is, I think, where everyone needs to start. We're facing a next world of work. We're not going backwards anymore. What does it mean for me? And let's have fun with that and embrace it for what it is and explore together and work out loud and share our learnings with others.
Exactly. Exactly. And for my last comments, you don't need to feel guilty about your changes. You can
Yes.
basically change anything. You can change your profession. It's your free will. Nobody's telling you to do anything and stick with one thing. You don't really need to if you don't want to. So try new things is the way, like is the only way to evolve yourself. So like
Oh,
be more open to new tries.
I hope everyone listens to this conversation over and over and over again, because sometimes we just need this little reminder. So yeah, actually, it is our responsibility and our opportunity to create our next chapter, whatever that might be. Now, where can everyone connect with you, learn more from you, and stay in touch with what you are up to?
Oh, sure. I plan on publishing more books in English. Like going forward, I'll be publishing more books in English. So I am really looking forward to meeting more people from all over the world with my book and through my book. And I do have a YouTube channel with the topic of career expansion, and I had the honor of interview Petra on my show as my very first guest. So feel free to come visit my YouTube channel. It's a handle name of Jane Kim underbar career growth. So I'll see you there.
Beautiful. Well, thank you again for being a front runner, for being an innovator, paving the way for all of us, and for your time and your wisdom today.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. It was a pleasure.